Welcome to the Business Trendsetter Podcast, where we talk about trends and how to grow your business. My name is Manny Turan.
And I'm Adam Hartung.
We are Spark Partners, delivering to you lots of insights through our trends, through our being able to look at what's coming next, and by deeply understanding our customers. Now, Adam, let me ask you a question here. When's the last time you went to the movies?
It would have been 2012. And I went to see a movie in one of the theaters that's the super wide screen special.
The IMAX?
An IMAX. I went to see a movie in an IMAX. And it was a movie that was made, and they said if you go see the IMAX version, it's special. It made it for IMAX, so you would get this real experience if you went to it. So, and I think it was about an oil rig exploding or something like that. I think that's what it was.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I really like the movies. I like the popcorn. I like the experience. But certainly, there's been lots of changes regarding really what's coming up. And just like you get previews of a movie that gives you an idea of what is happening in the movie, that's a bit what we do here at Spark Partners, giving you a preview of what's coming next through understanding trends and really by knowing what the customer, what the market is doing. Now, I know you've got some news for us regarding something that happened recently with respect to the industry, the movie industry. We've talked about it in the past, but it was at Cineworld that Regal Cinemas declared bankruptcy. Can you talk about that, Adam?
Sure. Yeah, it came out in the press this morning that Cineworld, which is a UK-based London headquartered company, is filing for bankruptcy so they can reorganize and restructure their debt. I mean, they don't make it sound like we're going out of business. They use these language of reorganization and restructuring debt. They do own Regal Cinemas in the United States. You can expect some of those to close. What was fascinating to me as I was reading about the story was that the demand for theater seats has been declining for 15 years. And when the pandemic hit, they realized, they had to shut their theaters in the UK and the US, and there were no customers for a while. So they borrowed money. They took that situation and said, okay, we need to just try to figure out how to defend and extend and get ourselves to the point where we'll be able to get back in the theaters again. And so they borrowed the money to get through that time. Well, here you had a business that was already struggling in the face of declining demand, and it borrows money on top of that. So what do you think the outcome's going to be, right? It's going to be bad, right? You just know it's going to be bad. And so they, even right before the pandemic hit, at the end of 2019, early 2020, they had agreed to buy Cineplex, which is a Canadian company that runs movie theaters. Then they were supposed to buy them. They withdrew on the deal, said, we're not going to do it because of the pandemic. They've been ordered to pay Cineplex $1 billion fine for backing out of the deal. That's never been paid. Now they're a couple $1 billion short on being able to make their payments to their lenders. I just bring it up because who wouldn't have seen this coming? Now, they said that the value of Cineplex, the Cineworld on the UK exchange had declined 86% this year. And I'm kind of like, well, how would it even have anything left to decline? Would it go from like $1 to 14 cents? Who was still in the stock and why? And who were the lenders that gave them money and why? The business is declining. People are staying home. Everybody's beefing up their home entertainment systems during the pandemic. You think they're all just going to come back again? It's kind of crazy to me how people don't sit down and look at the most obvious trends and say, we're going to just, these movie theaters, there are a few of them, and there will be a few of them. There will be the IMAX things. There'll be some of these movies that for some reason people think need to be released at theaters, like what happened with Top Gun Maverick when it came out. So I'm not trying to say the business goes away entirely, but I'm saying it's going to be way smaller. And as a way smaller business, it's probably going to be far less, it's going to be less profitable. It's going to be much more competitive. It'll be more difficult. They're talking about how theaters are going to start letting people order in food. Like you could get DoorDash restaurant food brought to the theater so you can eat while you're watching the movie. Start selling liquor in the theaters so that people are more enticed to come there to watch things. Maybe running Netflix shows on the big screen at a theater so that you can have the theater experience watching Netflix so you can enjoy that better than your house. I mean, I can understand all this, and I can say there will be opportunities. People want to do it. I mean, the date night concept hasn't gone away. People do want to date. People want to find entertaining things to do. I can see a place for that. But the fact that people didn't look at the obvious trends and say 90% of movie theaters are going to disappear, it just amazes me. It truly amazes me. And when I was scouting around looking at that, I came across an article about robots. And there was a convention, I think it was last week in Philadelphia, in which it was about warehouses and how people work in warehouses and how people ship goods, distribution centers, that kind of thing. And the highlight of it all was basically robots. And they were talking about how robots were coming into all different kinds of jobs, including robotic vehicles. There's a company that already makes robotic vehicles that Walmart uses that drive between locations in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, driverless cars from distribution center to distribution center. And the article is kind of like, this is the wave of the future. And that struck me as odd because that's the wave of now. You and I have been talking about robots and how people are working asynchronously and how the demographic trends mean there aren't the workers out there for years. We've been talking about this for years. And the idea that the robots are just now becoming something people are paying attention to, I think the writer or author of that newspaper article was pretty significantly behind the times. The thing I think our listeners need to understand, and they need to pass this along to their friends and relatives, if your job doesn't involve decision making, it will be roboticized, right? I mean, if you're just driving a car, if you're picking things up out of a bin, then if there's no decision-making involved, if it's purely labor, it'll be roboticized. And how do you think you're going to be able to make a living doing that when you're competing against a machine that's get plugged into the wall and gets programmed and reprogrammed every so often? And if
last time you went to McDonald's, Adam?
Oh, that's been at least a decade as well.
So in addition to liking the movies, of course, they're going away, so... But whatever. The other thing that, by the way, we go to a movie called Roadhouse Cinema, which is actually, it's a movie theater and a restaurant put together. So they've kind of adapted and looking at going in a slightly different direction. But the other thing is McDonald's. So my kids love McDonald's, of course. I don't know what it is in the ingredients that's so addictive. But you go to McDonald's now and you order from a kiosk. Oh. There's a giant, probably 3 foot by 18-inch kiosk that you go and you order all your stuff. You can make selections. You can make any adjustments, no ketchup, extra pickles, whatever. And then you push a button and then you put your credit card in there. And then a few minutes later, they call your number and you're done.
Well, I mean, why have a person in the front desk? I agree. If you can get customers to serve yourself by placing your order on your phone, right, through an app, or some other device, why not? I occasionally stop at Sonic. That's if I'm on the road, I like to pull into a Sonic and grab a hot dog and maybe I love their cherry limeade drink. And so, but they give you a discount if you buy on the app. If you don't drive in and order it at the little squawk box, but if you do it on the app, you actually get discounts. Yeah. Well, and what are they trying to do? Well, they're trying to automate it, right? They're trying to say, Adam, we don't want you to take the time of bothering a person inside to place this order. So do it on the app. We'll cut your drink costs in half or something like that, and it makes sense. It makes sense. You just need to keep in mind, if the job doesn't require making a decision, it will be automated. If the decisions are binary, I mean, it's a yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, machine learning will take over that job. It will be computerized, it will become artificial intelligence because we can teach a machine to watch people make binary decisions and they will eventually be faster and better because humans make mistakes. Even at binary decisions, if I handed you 100 glasses to wash and dry, you might well break one. Why? Well, because your mind would wander. You would wash some glasses, be fine. You could concentrate. After a while, you're not concentrating on the dishes anymore. You're not concentrating on. You're thinking about something else, and then you snap the leg off of a wine glass or something like that, right? Because the binary decisions, our brains just get tired of it. It gets weary. And so consequently, we start making bad decisions. So if they're binary decisions, yes/no decisions, you can program a computer to do it, and it will go with artificial intelligence. The only way you can sustain making money in a job is if you have to be able to look linearly. You have to be able to look, non-linearly. You have to be able to look across sets of data and bring in other data to make decisions. It's kind of like how you do things every day. I came to Napa recently because I heard there's going to be a heat wave, and set record temperatures, got to 115 degrees in Napa, which is the hottest temperature ever recorded in Napa. And there's a wine storage unit there on Mary Lou's house. And it's got a refrigerator on it. It's buried into a hill. Maybe you'd think nothing twice about it, but I got to thinking, was that unit designed to operate at 115 degrees? Right? I can ignore it most of the time, but if it's going to be 115, I wonder what's going to happen. Well, sure as the world, when it started getting really, really hot, the AC type unit kicked off. It couldn't handle the heat. And but I thought ahead, and I immediately jumped in the car and ran over to the grocery store and picked up about 20 pounds of dry ice. Came back and set that inside the unit so that it kept it cool while the AC didn't work. So that's the human mind. Human mind can say, "Oh, look, this is supposed to work a certain way," but the data has changed. Instead of being the normal temperature data, we've got an outlier data. Now we need to have an outlier decision. We need an outlier approach. The humans are very good at that if they try.
You know who else is really good at that?
Go ahead.
Apple.
Yeah.
So with respect to machine learning and some other things, there was a release today, of course, and you can talk more about this in a second, but new iPhone, new AirPods. The AirPods, for instance, have, and I'm reading from their website here, re-engineered for even richer audio, next-level active noise cancellation, and adaptive transparency, personalized spatial audio. So this idea of adaptive transparency is kind of mind-boggling. I used to own a pair of these AirPods, and there's a feature on there, of course, that they do significant noise cancellation. So you could be in a airplane, you can be in some really loud location, and all you really hear is the audio that's being put into the devices. You can then turn off the transparency and make them transparent, and then you hear the rest of the world. It's no longer adaptive, or it's no longer going through the process. So having a way to adaptively change that, I mean, that's straight up AI, and it's done by a company that is, of course, the leading contender of AI in this world.
Yeah, these products were just released this morning. I'm scrambling to try to make sure that I'm catching up on what's going on. But yeah, so again, the human brain, you can be in a room with 50 people murmuring odd sounds, and all of a sudden you'll stop and look because you recognize a voice of your son. And they're 35 foot away, but you pick that up out of that crowd. You'll know it was your son saying, "Oh, shoot," and something's up, and you look quickly and you figure out what's going on because your brain is hearing all of this, but it's selectively picking things out, and that's intelligence, right? And so what we see now is what these AirPods, what they've come up with is artificial intelligence to help this happen. So I used to be an audiophile years ago. It was fun. And one of the things you do in an audio file is you would go in a room with speakers, and you have a couple of speakers, very, very expensive ones usually, and you would turn all the lights out, try to make it as black as possible. Then you would put on the music, and then could you sit there and you would point and say, "Oh, there's the drums. Oh, there's the guitar. Oh, over here the bass." That's spatial. That's temporal spatial. And when you're in a concert, you definitely do it. If you're in a concert, you will pick out these different people and you look at them. Well, high-end audiophiles was like, could you make the speakers do that? Could you make the speakers appear to transcend and push that music off into different places to give you that experience of a live performance? What we now have in AirPods is that ability, to the point where the AirPod is starting to say, so now if you're on a FaceTime call, you can pretend you're in a meeting, and Hazel is to your left and Joey's to your right. And the AirPods will act that way. They'll make it sound that way. To the point, they track your head movement so that if you turn to look at Hazel, they know you're looking at Hazel, and they'll dial up Hazel's voice. And they know to dial down Joey's voice. And if you turn to look at Joey, then they'll dial down Joey's voice and dial up Hazel's voice. So it gives you that sense, that spatial temporal adjustment. That is artificial intelligence. Why is that good? Because that makes your job easier as a person. It helps you keep track. If you're on a phone call with 6 people and the people start talking, it's very easy to get lost. Who's talking? Where are they talking? And it's one of the reasons multiple people phone calls don't last that long. It's even an issue on Zoom sometimes. But if you add on to it this ability to bring in what your brain does with this logic, and to the same point of, like you talked about, sound deafening, one of the things that they introduced in this was this, you got to make sure I get it right, what they call the adaptive Transparency, yes, adaptive transparency.
Yeah.
And what that does is if you're sitting there listening to the music and somebody goes, "Hey, Manny," it will know that you've been shouted at, and it'll dial that up and let that noise come through while letting all the din of everything else around not happen, which is what I just said about, you recognize your son's voice across the room. That adaptive transparency, that's pretty incredible that they can figure out how to do it. Also, they'll pick up things like sirens, which would blow your head off with the AirPods in your ears, and they dial that down so that you don't get your eardrums blown out by, gunshots, cars backfiring, or whatever loud noise happens along the way. This is pretty smart. This is what we keep talking about, those big trends. We've talked about mobility, and we've talked about artificial intelligence, and then, of course, asynchronous work and the gig economy. What we see at Apple is a company that started on mobility, and they just keep pushing the edges of mobility, and they're using artificial intelligence to make their products something we just consistently want to know more about. So another one that they did is this new emergency tracking. So now what happens is they've designed the iPhone and the AirPods in such a way that if you have a car crash, they'll know you had a car crash. I think it's also part of the new watch. It's kind of, I got lost between all the different products. But if you have a car crash, it knows you had a crash, and it'll automatically send out a signal. If you fall down, it'll know you fell down, and it can be set to do a signal. So if you're somebody that's older or somebody that maybe has a broken bone and you want to, you're at risk, you can set it to do that. It'll even send this emergency SOS, even if you're not with your phone. It figured out how to put a GPS antenna in the watch, and it can actually shoot a signal to a satellite, so that you don't even have to have your phone with you. I mean, it's kind of like amazing that they can think of these things, but what are they doing? They're making you more mobile. They're making you say, in fact, if you want, you can now get your watch to hook up directly to the cell towers. You can get a number, and so you don't even have to carry the phone anymore. You can just have your watch be the only product. It's now got 2 speakers in it. The new one has 2 speakers, so that it sounds more real whenever it talks to you, and it's got better microphone to pick you up. Today, I just happened to have an incident. I was feeding my dogs, and while I'm feeding my dogs, I don't have my phone with me. I'm going for a walk feeding the dogs, and the call comes in. I look at my watch. It's somebody that I really wanted to talk to. I don't even remember where I put my phone, and boom, I had a phone call on my watch again. And so, I'm of an age, I still call it Dick Tracy when I do that.
Of course. Well, what's interesting about Apple, they've got a $2.5 trillion market cap on them. And people think that there's just this giant company, but they're not stopping. They're growing. They're going to be the on ramp and the off ramp to the metaverse, right? They're going to be able to plug us in and better ways, more connected. And we often get questions about, well, hey, I just run a small business. I have a small landscaping business. I have a small this business. You can adapt. You can also adapt. You can be part of the continuum by offering services on an app or being able to track where the technicians are when say, for instance, you own an HVAC company. I've mentioned this company before called Casa Video. They offer straight up old school DVD rentals, but they adapted. Now they have a bar and they have craft beer. And they have game nights. They have, chess games and all that. They have trivia games. So you can adapt. You can find ways to meet the needs of the customers as they're adapting. It's remarkable that some people say that there's so much difference between Apple and what they do. At the end of the day, it's just really understanding your customers.
Yeah. And I think sometimes our audience forgets that this technology is something that makes not just their lives better, it can make their business better. So we have a lot of gig workers that listen to us. I'm a big fan of the gig economy. A lot of these features help a gig worker to be more successful. One of them is the eSIM. So remember SIM cards? The SIM cards that go into the phone? If you lived in Europe, they were critical because you went to country to country, you had to switch out the SIM cards. They now, instead of a card in your phone, it's an electronic SIM. What that allows you to do is you can have multiple phone numbers in your phone. So you can have electronic SIM number 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're a gig worker, now you could have a phone number that would be business A, a phone number that's business B. And you could have them both in your phone at the same time. And so that helps you to be more effective. The second thing they added in with that is what they call audio sharing, which I think is just fantastic. That means, Manny, if I'm a gig worker and I'm somewhere and I want to have a call, say I wanted to talk to you, but I had a colleague over here that I wanted to listen in to get your insight onto a topic, I could use the AirPods. I could hit get audio syncing, and they can listen to your conversation, your and my conversation. They can link into it. So with the eSIM and the audio syncing, there's two features right there that are built in that helps a gig worker be more productive. Helps them be able, they could have one phone call going on for business. They could simultaneously take a second phone call on a personal line for personal matters with their spouse or their children or somebody. Maybe the kids' school, this world today, they want to make sure their kids can get a hold of them, so they keep a special phone number. So here's a business call, boom, eSIM comes in, ooh, it's my son. But I don't have to kill the first call. I can keep the call going with the business person while I try and find out what's going on. Why did Alex give me a call, right? Let's see what's going on here. So these features are things that we should, when I talk to people, they'll be kind of like, Adam, you're talking about this thing, it sounds awfully esoteric. And I'm kind of like, well, not really. Because, like, for example, all these features you're talking about, the AirPods. I don't own AirPods. I've never owned a pair of AirPods. But now I'm starting to realize, you know what? And I'm starting to get now why some of the better people I do business with have these things in their ears all the time. It's because they're so much more productive. They're able, to take a call, listen in, do things. It's not just listening to music with the AirPod or watching a movie and listening to the audio. It's really getting work done and being able to drive and get work done, being able to walk and get work done, sit on a train and get work done, ride the subway and get work done. That makes things more productive. And again, what we're seeing is that the big trends that we pointed out around particularly mobility and artificial intelligence are what are keeping Apple in front. The iPhone right now is a $196 billion business. That is actually bigger than all of Microsoft. All of Microsoft's a $170 billion business. That's one product, the iPhone, which, of course, it had its own features. We've got a better camera now. So, like you said, well, why would I care about a better camera? Well, I don't know if anybody here pays attention to real estate, but if you look at listings of real estate, you always have like these views of the rooms and everything's all fantastic. And they used to cost, anywhere from, a couple $300 to $1,000 to get these things shot because people come in with these cameras that would do the panoramics and the
camera. Yep.
You can do all of it on an iPhone now. You and I, you can set up a tripod in your house, and Manny, you can do it yourself. Yeah. So now you may not do it, but think about if you're a realtor. If you're a realtor, you either had to ask the client to put up the money to get this done, or as a realtor, you said, okay, I'm going to take my 5% commission. I'm going to pay to get these pictures shot, and the commission will pay me back for that. Now you can do it as a realtor. You can go in and do the shot yourself, and you just saved all that money, right? Especially if you're maybe a really competitive realtor who's really trying to hustle a lot out there. You can say to somebody, look, it's 5% commission. I'll do it for 4.75, and I'll do the internal shooting for you. Right? Makes me a little bit more advantageous as a realtor versus somebody else. So again, the idea is think about the trend, and then are you building on the trend? Are you bringing in the tools in your business to build in the trend? I know so many people that are carrying the iPhone around, or they're wearing an iWatch and they got the AirPods, and I'm like, are you doing that just for entertainment, or have you started to realize that these are business tools? And that they can help you to operate more asynchronously. They can help you to connect up with the gig economy. They can help you to be more productive with the gig workers out there. How well are you doing at that task, at using these trends to manage your daily business?
It's remarkable how much we've gotten. I was talking to somebody earlier today. I was a remote worker back in 2001. So I was a sales engineer, technical sales engineer, working in Tucson for a company based out of Austin. We didn't have Zoom, we didn't have video calls, but we had our cell phones, we had email. And I operated my whole day. I got get up, get ready for I'm going into a job, get dressed fully, and then walk into my office. And from that point on, I was basically on point. So what's interesting between now and then is a lot of the same things I did then or I do now, except now I've got so many more tools. Like you mentioned, I've got my watch, I've got my phone, I got two phones, I've got a lot of tools here that are using the latest trends that help me be more productive. And if you're a small business or a medium-sized business, you should be looking at what's available out there. How are you doing your marketing? How are you doing your communication with your clients? How are you doing your bookkeeping? I mean, there's so many opportunities. Right now is the best time to be in business, in my opinion. This
weekend I had the television was on, and the ad came on. There's an ad being run right now by, I believe it's Samsung, for one of their phones, and it's this phone that will open and close. We used to call it a flip phone back in the days, but the phone will fold in half and close. And they run this music by Queen. It's a really hot song that they had, and it's very, very, the production quality is extraordinarily slick, and they got this guy who's like the modern Leonardo da Vinci, and the ad comes on and go through it, and Mary Lou turns to me and said, "What the heck? What are they doing? Why would somebody want that?" And we talked about how much money had been spent, and what they were doing was they were talking about, buy this phone that opens and closes, and we're like, but why? And the best we could come up with was, if you're a very, very creative person, you like creative ideas, you like Leonardo da Vinci because he was very creative, and maybe you would identify with Leonardo da Vinci and think, well, if Leonardo da Vinci would own a flip phone, maybe I should own a flip phone. But as far as any practical reason why I would want a flip phone, we didn't think of one.
Was this an old school flip phone or something special?
No, it's a brand new phone. They're promoting the heck out of it. I mean, I must have seen that ad after it got pointed out to me and I was paying attention. I must have seen that ad 100 times over the Labor Day weekend. And so they're using this production quality to push you to buy something. But the question is, for what purpose? Why do you want it? And it gets back again to those old ideas, what's your value proposition with customer, or are you just trying to, add features? So here you got Samsung, in my opinion, they took the Google technology, they built some decent phones, there's nothing wrong with them. Now they've come up with a phone that folds in half. I could imagine that if you wanted something physically smaller to put in your pocket, okay, I see that as an advantage, but they don't even talk about that in the app.
Was that the one that has the screen and on both sides?
I don't remember.
There's a phone today that it's like two iPhones put together, and there's a screen on one side, and then when you open it, it's a giant screen. It's about 8 inches by 8 inches. And that's the closest thing I can think of why you.
But what I'm saying here is, why do you want it? Yeah. Features, functions, and benefits are of no value unless they solve a need, right? Tell me the need. So as what we started here, we're talking through all these new things that are in the Apple product launch. What I think we're trying to point out is that they meet a need. The trend towards mobility. I have needs to be more mobile. I have needs to operate faster, make better decisions. I would like artificial intelligence to help me with that. I would like, the products to make it possible that I could get by with just my watch and not have to carry a phone, definitely not have to carry a computer along. So what we're seeing are products that are not heavily advertised, but what they do is they help me to get my day more productive. And by being more productive, I pay up for it, right? I mean, a Macintosh is an expensive computer. These watches are $800, and more. The AirPods are $300, $400. These are not inexpensive products. They're high margin products for Apple, and people are buying them in large numbers because they integrate well. They help you make your day more productive, help you be more successful. And that's the point that we're trying to get across to our listeners, is that you need to think about trends and where people are going and what their needs are and how you're going to meet their needs. People in the theaters, I don't know what you're thinking about. You're not the need. What is the need to go to a theater? I'm sure there are some, but they're small, and you better be very targeted, and you better hit it right on the head because there's so much competition. That's a tough business to get into. What are your needs in business? I need to deal with the demographic aging of the population. I have to get things done quicker, better, faster, with less labor. Yep. Robotics come in on that. Machine learning comes in on that. Then let's take a look at what happens with the new products that come out. They build on these trends, need for mobility, need for assistance with decision-making, artificial intelligence, and then are you incorporating that into your business? Because if you're using it to be more productive, to be better, then you start thinking about how I can get my customer to use it. 10 years ago it was, hey, if people are going to have phones, let's write an app so that they can be more productive with it. Right. Now start thinking about what you can do in terms of using these tools out there. I think one of them in particular is this GPS. There's a GPS antenna now in the watch itself. That means if you've got any kind of location-based business, anything from a truck driver to a delivery person to, and that's delivering dry cleaning even, or to somebody that's a babysitter, anything where you want to know where somebody is or you want to know where a package is, then you've now got the technology with Apple. Remember, they got the little discs. You can put the disc in your purse. Yeah. You can put it into your luggage. You can put it into whatever you want. So you can track where it goes. Are you using those to help your customers be better, right? Not just use them for yourself. Start embedding these things, just like you would have written an app years ago. Start embedding what these products let people do. Better communication with your customers, able to deliver more information, and the health benefits. If you're in the healthcare industry, Apple Watch just keeps adding more and more. It's collecting ECG data, it's collecting temperature data, it's collecting blood oxygen data. Now, if you're in healthcare, are you sitting there thinking about how can I use that to try to make my customer's life better if I collect that information? So the trends are obvious, just far too often, like Cineworld, we don't pay any attention, and we just keep doing the same old thing.
Very true, Adam. Very true. Remember to watch us on Futures TV and based on Apple's TV as well as Roku. We ourselves are trendsetters. We're looking at where new things are going. Always invite you to go back to our website and spend some time in our archives, or if you listen to us on Spotify or one of these other tools. There's so much out there, and I think that if you look at even our early podcasts, there's relevance to today because we talk about the principles. We talk about not the fad, but what are the long-withstanding trends that are going to take us to the next level. So,
and anybody can go to futuresradio.com. They'll have the player there. And 4 o'clock Pacific time every day, there's a Business Trendsetter podcast. Our good friend Ram Gaoso is out there putting those on the radio. And you can listen to one every day at 4 o'clock Pacific time. Enjoy.
Awesome. Thanks for your time, Adam. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.
Cheers.